How can you communicate energy when you're shy? How can you get people excited when you're not good at presenting? What do you do then? So let me give a tip to everyone in this room, everyone listening. Nothing you do will ever engage a group of people more than letting them talk to each other. So if you're shy or you're not used to speaking or your topic is very dry and you want to make that strong general impression, here's a little process. And this is more in depth in the book. One,
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. All right, everyone, forget everything you thought you knew about public speaking because Ivan is here to rewrite the rule book. He's a globe-trotting communication guru who's taught on multiple continents, a stage presence with moves like a salsa dancer, and now the author of an amazing guide called End Boring. Ivan's on a quest to cure the world of boring communication one step at a time. And we're going to start right here on today's podcast. So, Ivan, welcome to the show.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me. I have never considered myself an author, even though I've written a book. I've actually written two books, but there's another one I'll tell you about if you want to know. But I'm just honored to be considered in the ranks of the authors. So thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Worse, and I think that every author kind of starts that way. You might not realize that you have
Yeah.
in you until you start writing, or you get that one idea, which you certainly did. But I think we kind of need to start off this podcast by before we started recording this, you were telling me that you did your hair different for this show. What's that? You just decided to get a new style?
No, no. You know what's funny? I'm actually right now in the process of recording an online course that I'm
Oh,
doing because everything I've done in the past has never been for the public. The first, all the things I teach is kind of gatekeeping because the average person can't find it except for the book. But I'm going to start releasing a public course because I've had a lot of people ask me about it. And for it, funny enough, uh, I've been trying to do a different. One of the ways I'm making it kind of fun is every module, there's a couple lessons. I try and do different hair, different outfit, and different facial hair.
so that's really funny. So this is not the way you usually look. To all of our audience members taking a look, if you see Yvonne out on the streets, you probably wouldn't be thinking that hair.
This is definitely new. This is definitely new. And actually, a fun fact, I'll tell you a useless fact, Danielle. So
Okay.
I have this whole kind of secret life. My main job is in teaching communication skills. I MC events, but then I have this kind of secret life. And anyone, you can look in the page notes, find my full name. And I have this secret life as an actor. So I grew this mustache goatee thing because in the new year, I'm going to be playing a part in an upcoming TV show. And in it, this is the hair they wanted. And so now I'm just kind of going with it because I'm kind of liking it.
That's really cool. And I don't want to get us too off track for the book and the writing, but are you able to tell us the show or is that a
Yeah,
secret?
yeah. The show is coming out on Paramount and it's called Westie. And
Okay.
it's about a New York gang in the late 70s, early 80s. And it's about them trying to kind of like come on up and do their thing. And it stars J.K. Simmons, which you may know. If you don't know J.K. Simmons, he's in everything. He's the person you're like, oh my God, this guy, he's fantastic. So you guys can all look it up. And I have a small part where I play a Dominican drug dealer selling a couple of keys of coke to the Westies gang. And
Okay.
yeah, look at it's. I think it's coming out in 26 on Paramount, so you can look it up there.
Well, way to kind of put a plug for your new show in here too. That's really awesome. My God. And yeah, I know J.K. Simmons. He's in a bunch of stuff. Like
Mhm.
Spider-Man, Juno.
Yeah, Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're really talking to an interesting character here today, folks. So, all
I'm a
right.
bit of a Renaissance man.
I guess so. Wow. So I guess the first question I just have to ask you then is, how on earth did you go from, acting to speaking to
Yeah.
courses to now a book? I mean, what's this like life motto? Just a whiplash of different endeavors, right? What's the inspiration
Well,
for it all?
Danielle, I think let me put this into in a couple of ways. Number one, I live my life by this quote, and I'm pretty sure I made it up. And that is the fear of the unknown is greater than the fear of being unhappy. So
Mm.
most people settle for unhappy. Like Danielle, listen, millions of listeners around the world, you know this. Every single person here knows someone who's in a job they hate, who's in a relationship that is not working. And you say, quit, break up. And they say, no, what if I can't find anything better? So they will settle for unhappy because it's safe. So I've always been that person where when I feel like things aren't moving forward in life, you got to do something a little crazy. And part of the reason I have these various careers is I wanted to be an actor when I was younger. And I tried it out and it was working and I've never given up on it. But I realized, you know what? This is never going to make me like money. Then I
Right.
was really into dancing. I used to own a dance school. And then I realized I love dancing, but it's not a career. It's a young person's game. So now I just moonlight and dance. I've burnt out of like many careers. So I burnt out of finance. I burnt out of sales. I don't know how many careers you've had, but I've been fired out of more careers than I can count. But in all those jobs, for some reason, it was like Ivan was the one who's good at speaking. And so after a while, I thought, you know what? When I was teaching dancing, everyone always commented on how I was so good at like making things interactive and speaking. When I was doing all these jobs, wow, you're quite good at speaking. So I thought, why not make a career out of it? But at the same time, like Danielle, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you have only one dream?
No, I think everybody's got to have at least a few, right?
Yeah. Most of us don't pursue them all because we feel like we have to give up one to do the others. And maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong, but I
Right.
just never wanted to give up on any one of them. So I try and pursue them all at the same time. Here was the initial idea. The initial idea was I was going to teach public speaking communication to make money while I became a famous actor. And then what happened is the public speaking blew up and the acting kind of stayed in place because of the nature of the industry. And so here I am. Every now and then, most of the time I wear a suit and tie, and every now and then I get a goatee and sell a fake key in the 1980s to J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, wow. I think that anybody listening today can totally relate to what you just said because I mean, you're right. Everybody has like those fears, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to change what I'm doing. It's gonna be too much work. What if I fail? But how are you ever going to improve or grow if you're not taking those chances? And I mean, I think you're a prime example of what happens when you do, because here you are, like successful author on TV shows, guiding other people to follow in your footsteps too. So, to the authors out there, don't be afraid, and it all starts with just that first step, I guess you could say, right?
And also, one of the other things that I really embodied is that you will fail at most of the things you do,
Right. At
but
least
the
the
thing
first
that
time.
keeps you up and up is not the failure. The thing that keeps you up at night, when you're haunted by your dreams, is when you never tried, and so the what if haunts you. And I'll give you a really good example of this. When we think of like one of the most successful companies of all time, what are some names that pop into your head, Danielle?
Some of the most successful companies
Yeah, think of the biggest
in
companies in the
general,
world.
Amazon,
It's
McDonald's.
no, Amazon is always top of mind.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Amazon has sort of failed a lot more than it succeeded. This is not my idea. This is something I was listening to at a different podcast because I'm a big podcast listener. And they
Okay.
said, if you think about it, Amazon did really well at home delivery, like the marketplace, but they have failed. Like Prime is not a big success. Remember the Fire phone, whatever the phone they were doing, that was a failure. They tried to make a computer, that was a failure. They've failed at a lot of the businesses they've tried, but they won at like their shopping and they won at Amazon Web Services. But the moral is Amazon tries. It's constantly trying and doing new things. And even though they fail at most of them, the ones they succeed on, they really succeed on. And I've always loved that mentality. I'm going to try everything, knowing that I'm going to fail at a lot of it, but finding a few of those highly successful moments.
Right. And yeah, I mean, just to riff off of Amazon too, I mean, they're so interwoven in our daily lives. I don't know if you heard recently, they actually had
I
like
know I saw everyone's web services. As I
yeah,
was
and it's
saying it, I'm like, maybe not a good example, but in
well
five
no,
years
because
from now, someone's going to listen and be like, I have no idea what they're saying.
yeah, well, to everybody listening, even if you don't know the current news, that the servers were down earlier this week, and it just affected tons of different apps, websites
Hmm.
across all platforms, and like you wouldn't even think that some of these platforms are related. But I guess it just goes to show that even Amazon does make mistakes, I guess, or things happen. So it just goes to show, like, keep going along, right? It's just a little roadblock, and just to kind of pull some inspiration out of that.
Yeah, and also goes to show you how successful, like, when Amazon was doing home delivery and the marketplace, and they said, we're going to get into web hosting. People are like, that is so not related to your business. How on earth is that feasible? Why aren't you staying in your realm? But now Amazon Web Services, I think it's the second part of their business, if not the first. And it just goes to show you that almost everything is running on Amazon Web Services. It's how successful that little gambit paid off.
Right, exactly. Um, so do you want to talk about your book, or do you want to
Sure.
talk Amazon?
Everyone's
So
like, I thought we're talking books here. Now we're talking about Amazon Web Services. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Well, to the
The
audience, listening, we can always learn things from this. I mean, what applies to Amazon or life in general directly relates to, writing too, because it's a learning curve. You make mistakes,
Sure.
grow from it. And to segue into end boring, I'm sure you also
Yeah.
have your fair share of roadblocks along the way.
Oh
Do it
yeah.
ring a bell at the moment? Anything in particular
Of
that
course. No, I'll tell you something. Well, here was the number one roadblock for me. Danielle, I'm a talker. I am not a writer. And just the thought of having to sit down and write, it took me forever to put these thoughts down. And then I asked myself, like, why am I even writing? If you're not a writer, why force yourself to write? So what I did instead is this. I voice dictated this entire book. So when you hear this book, you'll notice that it's not very like formal in writing. It's a very casual way of writing because what I did is I decided that I was going to dictate this book, voice to text. Then, because I'm terrible at grammar, I just hired someone to help me and fix all the grammar and everything. Then, once we had the draft, I said, you know what? Books need to be visual because I'm a visual person. I love visuals. So I made up a bunch of visuals. And then I thought to myself, a lot of this stuff is hard to explain. Like Danielle, nonverbal communication is really hard to explain in words. So then I thought, hey, man, it is like 2021. Why am I trying to explain this in words? Why not add some videos? But how do you add videos to a book? Well, I put a bunch of videos, I made a bunch of videos, and then I put the QR codes in the book.
QR codes? I love that.
And so the idea is it's an interactive book. And the other thing I thought of was when I was looking at online courses for communication, I don't know if you have, but I went on like Skillshare, for example, or Udemy. And the most popular courses are like 50 hours. They're like, look, you get 50 hours of content. And for me, I'm like, the last thing I want to do is watch 50 hours of classes. So I
Yeah,
said, how simple can I make this book? How short can I make this book? Because size doesn't matter in writing,
it
right,
doesn't.
Danielle? No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Tell my clients all the time, you don't need 100,000 word book. Just
No,
get the point across.
exactly. And so I said, okay, once I voice dictated, I realized that, okay, it's long. I can probably say this even tighter. So I made the first draft. I put in the QR codes. I put in a bunch of pictures and visuals. And then I said, I'm going to see if I can make this even shorter. And when you look at the book, it's like this. It's like just over 100 pages because the idea is I don't want this something you read from beginning to end. What I want is, you know what? I need to think of a good way to transition between these topics. How do I summarize this idea? How can I say this simply? So it's just a reference guide. Intermixed with it, I realized something else. So let me ask you a question, Danielle.
Mhm.
Have you ever had kale?
I have.
And
Yes.
yeah, in a smoothie or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've
Or
also
like
had
a
kale
salad.
chips, like, before.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we all think of kale as being very healthy.
Is it
Fair?
not?
Oh no, it is healthy. But here's what I do in all my sessions. I tell people, how many of you have eaten kale? And everyone puts their hand up. And I say, why is kale good for you?
It's
And
green.
exactly, nobody knows. You're like, I don't know, green? I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. It's because someone told it to you. And the reason why the scientist who won the Nobel Prize and explains to you why the Earth climate change is real, you don't believe, but some dude in his car who's like, listen, I went on Google for 20 minutes, you follow them, is because the one in the car is using anecdotal evidence, anecdotes, experiences. The scientist is using evidence. But here's the truth: anecdotes are not evidence, but they are more convincing than evidence.
Right.
One personal experience is all it takes for you to try some food. So I decided, instead of fighting that, embracing it. And then in the book, there's case studies and little anecdotes of people who have tried these tactics. Because I've been teaching this stuff for about 15 years at this point. So I got previous students to tell me, if you've used it, give me some anecdotes. And I put that in the book as well.
I love that. Wow. Okay. So you really just have a mix of different types of media within the book itself. I mean, from
Mm-hmm.
anecdotes, the case studies, the everything in between, and the QR
Mm-hmm.
codes. A very great idea. It's something that I've experienced with some of my clients before. I'm a ghostwriter and an editor, and we've done that
Love
too. Like,
that.
you throw in a QR code, link it to your YouTube channel, then you're cross promoting both, the YouTube channel and the book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. Have you found it successful so far now that the book's published?
Yeah. So one of the things that people really enjoyed about the book is that, it's in certain parts, you're like, well, what does that look like? And then there's a QR code. So they love that they can just glance at it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
people have been responding to it. And the idea, I visualize this: someone holding the book in one hand, or a Kindle in one hand, or whatever reader in one hand, and their phone in the other, and literally just looking, scanning. Oh, that's interesting. And then going back. I love that idea.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's unique, and it gets. I would say it's because it's so interactive, and the reader is allowed to kind of pick and choose what they're immersing
Hmm.
in. They're more likely to get to the end of the book or to take action on what you're ultimately bringing it
Yes.
to. Which I'm guessing our main goal here is to get to your consulting. Is that right?
The book.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
From a business, there was a couple of goals with the book. I'll give you three main reasons why I wrote the book. Okay. And I'll start from most petty to least petty.
Okay.
Most petty, I thought, what a great source of passive income.
Love that
Have a
for you.
book out there, promote it, put some money on Amazon ads so that it's always there, and just a little trickle in of money. That's the petty reason. The second reason, and you know this, Danielle, you know this as someone who helps people with their book, being an author adds legitimacy to your concepts and ideas. If you can say you've written a book, and my book managed to, it was like, it got an award for being one of the most downloaded in its first week on Amazon.
Oh,
It had this
wow.
little bump. Yeah, yeah, it was great in the education category. I'm not competing against Stephen King. It's just in the education category.
Right.
So that was the second reason, to add some legitimacy to my title and my value proposition. And then the last reason is because of something my like grade 7 teacher said to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, what is
I don't
it?
know if this was, yeah, I don't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing, but they said, I want you to think, Mr. McFarland, if you're listening, I love you, but you traumatized me as a 12-year-old. So he said, if you think about it, when you die, besides the people who like your friends and family, who's going to care? And how quickly will you be forgotten? That hit me, right? And so the concept of legacy is another reason I wanted to write the book. I have this fantasy of whatever the podcast is in 100 years from now, Danielle. Someone's be like, so about 100 years ago, there was this guy named Ivan, and he wrote some very interesting stuff. And, like, I have this image of a legacy that lives on after me.
Wow. Yeah. Well, hey, I think those three reasons you laid out there is exactly the reason why any author should really, if they're not sure if they should write or not, one of those or all of those relate to really everybody. So that's great that you kind of took that and you ran with it and you turned it into this, amazing piece that can help other people, tenfold. So really cool that you went along, you did that. But to focus on like the content of the book itself, then, I
Sure.
mean, and boring, right? I mean,
Hmm.
about the 2% rule, for example, which is something I've heard about
Sure.
before. Um, 2% rule is that, you only retain one piece of information and a general impression.
Mm. Yes.
How do people ensure that it's exactly what the 2% is what people want to hear? How
Mhm.
do you focus that?
So it's a very valid point, and this is one of the mindset shift people need to have. It doesn't matter if you talk for 10 minutes or an hour. Most people are only going to remember that one thing you said, and it's probably something they really agreed with or really disagreed with.
Right.
And then they're going to have a general impression. That was really interesting. So how can you do that? Well, in the book, I give you a bunch of tactics to do both of those things. But let me give the listening audience one tactic to make that one thing memorable, and then another tactic to really have that general impression. Fair?
Mhm.
So one of the tactics that you need to have is you need to be able to have a simple sentence at the beginning of everything you say that you repeat like an echo throughout whatever amount of time you're speaking. And one of the examples is a visceral statement. And a visceral statement is something that evokes a response. And I say that it evokes an emotional response, but let's substitute the word emotional for
Okay.
physiological. When
Okay.
you agree with something, when you disagree with something, when you're trying to figure it out, there is little adrenaline and dopamine spikes. So if you make a visceral statement, the whole point is to get some sort of a dopamine response via specificity. So I'll give you a really good example. Let's do one right now, Danielle. Okay. You and I
Okay. Let's do
together,
it.
ensemble.
Let's do it.
All right. So,
How to
Danielle,
start.
what is a piece of advice that you would give to people who are authors?
One piece of advice to set yourself a schedule. You can't keep pushing it back and pushing it back. You got to make sure you're
Mhm.
writing a little bit each week, keep the progress going.
So the way we would take that idea and
Mhm.
transform it into a visceral statement that gets a response out of people is we find, and this is where a specific anecdote that people can agree or disagree with. So, for example, here's a visceral statement: if you're not writing for 10 minutes every week, you're wasting time.
Okay. Turn it into
Now,
something.
you can agree or disagree with that. I don't care. Disagree, great. Now we're talking about it. Agree? Oh, I agree. I'm right. You're right. Now we're talking about it. What people don't respond to is generalized statements. It's important that you focus on making sure that you have a consistent schedule. And even oh my God, Danielle, your face right now. Is this going to be on YouTube?
It's gonna be on YouTube, yeah.
Okay, everyone who's listening, go on YouTube right now because this is literally what happened. When I gave Danielle the visceral statement, she lit up. She's like, "Ooh, I like that." When I started talking general, Danielle, literally, you did this. Literally, this happened. Your whole face went like this.
That's really funny that you're like picking up
You
on that.
dropped because you start hearing that businessese and you're done. Nobody cares.
Right.
So that's how you make a really good one thing for people to remember. You make a visceral statement by giving something a specific anecdote. Right?
Yeah.
And it has to be specific enough that I can agree or disagree. It doesn't matter which one.
But you're also adding like a layer of like urgency too. Like you need to resolve
Mm.
and get to it next. So just something else I noticed in what you did.
Yeah, I always like, and one of the things I say, and there's another tactic here in terms of using numbers, is you give a time constraint to things,
Mm,
creates stress. And and we have all experienced something that isn't important but is stressing us out that we want to do right away. We can't focus on anything else. You do that by creating, and here's the secret, Danielle. This is a little bit off to the side of what we're talking about. If you really want to motivate action, you give people an unreasonable time constraint, but you actually allocate more time. So when I'm working with a group and I say, you're all going to make a visceral statement, I'll give you 3 minutes, and then I'm picking random people to present in front of everyone. Like
and
just me saying that to you, that would stress you out so bad, right? And you'd be like, oh my God, 3 minutes. And you start working, you'd hyper focus. I actually will give you 10 minutes, but I just told you three to hyper focus you.
right. Yeah, no, I can see how that gets people going, it gets them thinking, and then I can
Yeah.
imagine while you're giving that seminar, asking that question, you kind of stand back and cross your arms and have a little evil laugh, like they're trying to rush through it and get it.
Dance, puppets, dance.
Yeah. So awesome. I love that. And
That's how you make the one thing they remember from the 2% rule. And if you want, I'll tell you how you make a good general impression.
yeah, I mean, I think I already get from looking at you and listening to during this podcast. I mean, to everybody who is, just tuning in, before we pressed record, he popped on here just cracking jokes, making everyone laugh. And I think that's one way for sure. Just being they're very joyous is what I'm getting from you. But
Sure.
am I on the right track here?
You are. But and that's like, how can you communicate energy when you're shy? How can you get people excited when you're not used to presenting, when you're not good at presenting? What do you do then? So let me give a tip to everyone in this room, everyone listening. Nothing you do will ever engage a group of people more than letting them talk to each other. So if you're shy or you're not used to speaking or your topic is very dry and you want to make that strong general impression, here's a little process. And this is more in depth in the book. One, get on stage, get in front of everyone, in front of stand up at the table, and give people something to discuss or decide for like 30 seconds. Can everyone find an example of this? Before I begin, can everyone just pick one between these two options? Or can everyone just go online real quick and find a link for blank? Get them to do something that gets them to talk to each other,
Mm.
then get their attention back. That's going to wake them up, energize them, make them feel like they're part of whatever you're about to say. It also gets you up and speaking, breaking the ice. So you get those first little things out. The nerves, people are always nervous right at the beginning and then they get better at the end. The nerves, you get that out, and then the focus is off of you. But then after the 30 seconds or a minute, you get their attention back. And you say, well, the reason I asked you to choose those two options is because I want to talk about option A. And right away, it makes you look so in charge, even if you're shy.
Right. Well, I love these tips. And, what I was going to say before also is I can only imagine that your books are just full of ideas just like this. So that's really cool. And by clicking on QR codes and listening to the stories that you have in there, people can get even
Mm-hmm.
more immersed in this. That's awesome. So yeah, guys, I mean, check out End Boring. It's an amazing like start to learn a little bit more about Ivan's world and his concepts and ideas here. It's you're awesome. You get people going, you get them excited. Um, I wish we had more time to chat, but before we
Have
do,
me back. Happy
I
to come
think
back anytime.
we'll have to because you mentioned you have another book too, right? And what's that other book? If we can kind of throw that in here for people to check
Well,
out.
let me tease it. Let me tease it. I
Oh, it's
wrote
not
another
out
book now.
yet.
No, I wrote a children's book
Oh,
uh, dedicated to my ex-girlfriend's dog that I fell in love with and I miss all the time, called Rosie and Yvonne. And I even made a song for it
you
because
did not.
no, I used to take this dog for walks and I'd always be like, Rosie and Yvonne. And the dog would be like, and the dog's name is Rosie. And if you look for Rosie and Yvonne on YouTube, you might find this because I put the song up. Uh,
Well,
but I'm very random. I know I have these random things that I love doing. And I think we got to do more random stuff.
I guess so, but I'm just thinking about the fact like people make fun of Taylor Swift all the time for like ripping out her exes and her songs, and here you are write a children's book to get back at your ex about missing the dog. Like that's
But
hilarious.
it's funny because it's all about like a 7-year-old boy, Yvonne, me, at 7 years old, and this beautiful dog named Rosie and their little adventures. And this dog I love so much, this stupid dog. And I haven't seen, but it's funny. I don't really miss the girlfriend, but I really miss the dog.
Oh, I I feel like if we got on a podcast and talked about this, I would just be cracking up the whole time, thinking I have to put myself on mute. But would love to have you back to chat in depth about that because I think that's just really
Love
fun.
to.
I think authors can benefit from learning about that too, because I mean, this podcast is more so about self-help and getting yourself going, and also the strategies in your nonfiction book. But I think people can also benefit from how do you translate that mindset to the world of children's literature too. So, really cool. Guess we'll have to stay tuned for that next one, everybody. But
Yeah.
before we do go, I'm wondering if you have any last minute writing tips for people listening today.
Yeah. I think the number one, I have a couple of things that I did that really changed and adapted is first of all, is I always try to read a part of it to someone. What I found is when I would read something to someone, it's always different when someone else is listening. And I was like, oh my God, this is so long-winded. Oh, this doesn't sound good. And when I'm doing it by myself, it never worked. But when I read it to somebody, it always sounded different. And that was one of the best ways when I was stuck between how to say something one way or another, which many authors are. Should I say it like this? Should I say it like this? Just read it to somebody and you will be able to figure it out right away, because you're not only going to see their reaction, you're going to hear your own words differently. Because Tupac said, all eyes on me. Because when people are watching you, it's different. And when
Yeah.
you hear your words and someone is watching you, you will hear them differently. That's
Okay.
something that was so valuable to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of tip for everyone to hold on to, and maybe even try right after this podcast ends. Give it a
Mhm.
go. And that's something not all people think to do that either. So it's a unique perspective to take. Um,
And I'll
yeah,
give you one more tip, just
yeah.
like because we live in an online world. Many times when I was unsure if a topic was worthwhile or not, and this can initially go in the research phases, but also when you're thinking about what to keep or cut out of a book, I would ask Reddit. I would
Okay.
go onto Reddit and I would say, gang, is this idea clear?
Mm,
What does everyone think about this? Is anyone curious about this idea? And I would do a lot of my, I guess, bouncing of ideas on Reddit, because you get people from around the world giving you opinions. And it's a great resource that I don't think enough people use, not so much for information, but to bounce ideas.
yeah, I love that. I mean, I always advocate for you can't write on your own. It's not really a solitary effort, even though a lot of people
Hmm.
think it is. You need to have a team on your side to bounce those ideas off. But Reddit, I never actually considered that myself. Facebook
Yeah.
groups, book groups, but Reddit, that's another great avenue I never explored. I'm sure there's lots of threads. I'm actually not even on Reddit. So what would you call that? Like a thread that they chat on?
Yeah, yeah. And there's Reddits about everything.
Understood.
So
Oh,
there's Reddits about writing books, but there's also Reddits about like whatever topic you're interested in.
mm. So there
So
we go.
whatever yeah. And you just go there and you hear, and it's a great place to generate ideas because you can see one of the things I went on Reddit, little side note, and this was one of the catalysts for the book, is I would see the advice people was giving, and I'd be like, mm,
Oh,
mm.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Okay.
Or yeah. And I realized something else, and I'll say this as my last thought, Danielle, because I know I'll talk forever.
It's okay.
Who would have thought a guy who did a book about talking would talk forever? The world has enough ideas. We don't need more ideas. We need more tactics. When I was researching my book, what I realized is all the advice people gave on communication and speaking were just random ideas. Engage your audience. Just make sure you have a good core message. And then I was like, okay, how? How? I thought I did. How? Give me some tactics. Give me some good core messages. And that's what was lacking. That's how I identified my niche. Is I realized that in the world of public speaking, it's just people giving the same old ideas. No one tells you, everyone tells you the what and the why, but no one's showing you the how. That's why the book is called A Tactical Approach, because it's just full of tactics. And I would recommend that if anyone is writing a book on any subject from self help, ask yourself, what is something that your reader will look at and be able to try right away? A
Mm,
sentence they can finish, a physical action they can perform. If you can't find that, you're just given ideas.
right. Well, that's exactly what your book does. I mean, it has very actionable steps. It has those
Yeah.
QR codes. It has those activities or everything else. So, guys, check out the book. We're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today. And stay tuned because Evan, I think we got to have you back on the show. I think this is going
Love
to
to.
be a great
Love
time.
to. I'm actually
Um,
doing a research on another book about the dark side of communication, where I'm actually looking into cult leaders, con men,
okay.
yeah, yeah, people who are like
Who
using the
influence
dark
others
side,
the
and
wrong reasons. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it's very interesting. Who is more persuasive than a cult leader? Come on, think about that.
Can't argue with that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
should
yeah.
something how to be a public speak like a cult leader or something like that. Kind of funny. Um, guys, Yvonne's gonna riff for like another hour, so we got to cut it here. He's just gonna
Zip.
keep giving us these tips. It's been a pleasure. You're a lot of fun. Everybody, check out his links in the description box and be on the lookout for our next episode. And until then, keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Danielle. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.